Hey everyone, and welcome back to this roundup of round 2 of the local 40k league. This week I was taking on the might of Imperial Knights with my Salamander successor chapter. The game we were playing Recover the Relics, and the secondaries I selected were Promethean Creed, Banners, and perhaps unsurprisingly, Bring It Down. So the plan for this game was very much try and hide as much as I could to weather whatever storm came at me turn 1, with a view then to bringing my melters into range as quickly as possible and dishing out some pain. Because with things that big, I surely wouldn't have to go looking for them, and with only a handful of models on the board, I think he had about 9 figures. If I could start whittling them down, it would take big chunks out of the combat ability of the knights. And obviously not having to go looking for them because they're so big would mean I don't have to go charging around looking for trouble. That was the plan. Let's see how it went. So turn 1, that began with my opponent getting first go. He managed to take out an assault bike and a couple of blokes that I hadn't been able to fully conceal behind the terrain, but overall not too bad. In response, I managed to bring down 2 of the smaller knights. Positive start overall. Turn 2, however, was not quite so useful because I'd had to move forward to bring my guns into range or to make my guys visible so they could see to shoot. They really took a lot of firepower in response. My Land Raider was taken out in a single round of shooting. Both my remaining attack bikes and most of my Eradicators were cut down in a hail of fire. In response, I did manage to bring down one of his large knights, so that was something at least, but I was starting to really feel the pain at this point. Still, I was still in the game with us being level on points. Turn 3, my Devastators were pretty much all killed, and I didn't really manage anything in response, just picking up a few passive points from sitting on objectives and having banners up. Turns 4 and 5 were then unfortunately largely a mop-up exercise of the remaining elements of my force, although the big guy that I'd killed earlier, he had obviously, because I gather it's what they do, got back to his feet, and I did manage to cut him down once more. Over the course of the game, I did manage to score fairly highly, which is a positive, but I think after really that second turn, I'd never really felt as though I was in control of the game, and I was always chasing a result to a certain extent. Final score was 98-70 in favour of the Imperial Knights. Now, I'd never played Imperial Knights before. I'd never really seen much of them in action either from other people's games, so I was kind of making it up a little bit as we went along. I'd been told a couple of bits of information about them which was useful, but I hadn't really clued myself in, I think, to the resilience they have, with a lot of invuns floating around, feel no pain as well being an option. So it meant my firepower wasn't quite as effective as perhaps I'd hoped. And on talking through the game with my opponent afterwards, it seemed that logic would have been to actually focus more of my firepower on the small stuff, leave the big ones on their Todd, and then try and run around and just secure points through primary while restricting his ability to be in lots of different places to pick up honour points, etc. So perhaps some useful things to take away from that, particularly as I've got Chaos Knights yet to come in the league, and it's a Chaos Knights list that, from what I understand, is even shootier than the one I was facing against, and is being wielded by a very experienced high-level tournament player, which isn't quite what I want for a Challenger League, but there you go. It's all about the challenge, and we will see how I get on. The next opponent I've got is going to be Custodes. Again, it's an army being wielded, my understanding is, by a very experienced high-level tournament player. So I don't fancy my chances in either that game or the Chaos Knights game. It's probably a case of just trying to come out with a tighter loss as possible, and to really try and get a few learning points in around dealing with that army, which may or may not, of course, be any use with 10th edition just around the corner. So there we are. I'm now 0-2 in the league. Things not going swimmingly. We can only hope that things start to get better. Thank you very much for listening. If you are enjoying listening to the story of how I get absolutely hammered at Warhammer 40,000, do consider subscribing and watching the playlist to keep up to date with how I'm getting on. I'll probably do some stuff separate to the league when 10th edition drops as well, if you're interested in that kind of thing. But otherwise, thank you very much for listening. This is Return to the Old World. Have a great day.